This is a speedometer odometer module taken from a 1995 Ford E350 van, and when I bought the van the speedometer odometer was not working. It had been recently, but had been parked for a while. I found some videos on YouTube about how to repair this, and I did the repairs, but it didn't work. But then I was able to figure out why it didn't work, so I thought I would just add my input to the YouTube information about this thing. There's a power supply. The power comes in over on this side of this connector, and there's a diode here, surface mount diode, electrolytic capacitor, and then this thing here is a MOV, which helps manage voltage spikes, is what I believe it does. One of the YouTube videos, the man had put together a parts list for replacement parts from the Mauser electronics, and I sent for those and got those and replaced this electrolytic capacitor, this other bipolar capacitor, the diode, surface mount diode, and the MOV, and this particularly the surface mount diode almost fell off in my hands. I think it was when it was originally installed. They might have had a quality control issue or something, because it was not, the pads underneath were not, the solder was not adhering well to the pads, I guess I should say. Well, I put it all back together. It still didn't work. So then I actually bought another one on eBay. These are available on eBay. But I was interested in trying to get this one working because the van, I had records. I bought the van from a university surplus, and they had records showing that it didn't have very many miles on it. And the ones on eBay are, 150,000 miles or whatever, and this, I wanted to get the old one working again if I could. So I was measuring things, voltages and resistances between points, things like that. I was able to get it running. You can run it by putting 12 volts on the first pin, ground on the second pin, and then 12 volts on the third pin. If you do that, you could make it work on the bench, and it comes on. So I was doing that, had the other one powered up, and I could compare voltages, that kind of thing. And all of the things happening on this side of the board had no supply voltage. Things over here did have supply voltage, but things over here appeared to not. And there was no voltage on any of the parts of this adjustable piece, no voltage in this big transistor. Well, it turned out that the collector of this transistor, I was trying to follow these traces. The collector of this transistor just kind of disappears. It doesn't have any trace on the upper part of the board. It doesn't have any trace on the lower part of the board. On the replacement unit that was working, that collector, it has a C there, had direct connection to the capacitor and also to the side of the MOV. I should say, when I took out my capacitor, it had gooey stuff under it, and that gooey stuff, those capacitors will leak gooey stuff, and they will eat the traces. Well, it looks like, since there's no trace visible on this C thing on either side, it looks like there's an embedded trace inside the circuit board, so it's a multi-layer board of some sort. The other one that's working, I could put in my my continuity test of my ohm meter, and between this point on the MOV here and that C there would give me, it would beep, have continuity. But on my one that I had repaired, it did not have continuity. So I'll show you what I did. I repaired this by putting in a jumper between those 2 points. Here's that point on the MOV, and here's the C point on the transistor, the collector of the transistor. Once I did that, then it started working again. So if you have to do this work with especially if your electrolytic capacitor was leaking, it may mess up the internals of the circuit board, and then if you don't have any power going to the transistor, that's the situation I have, then think about putting in a jumper. If you measure continuity between the MOV and the collector, it should beep. Your continuity tester should show that there's continuity there. And if it doesn't, then you can put in a jumper and maybe that will work for you. If it's still not working after you replace the power supply parts, I guess you've got nothing to lose. Now it actually happens that these other large solder through things are from the heatsink. And the heatsink is clipped to the transistor with this metal clip, and they also have continuity to the collector. But I wouldn't solder just to the heatsink, because then you're relying on that metal clip to do that, to feed the power to that transistor, and probably not such a good idea. I think that's all I have. Thanks.